Welcome and thanks a lot for joining our session. We at Norstad run online panels in 18 European countries, and last year we relaunched all of those pages. They received a major facelift. In addition, new functions and game mechanics help to deeper engage with the panel members. In the next 15 minutes we want to walk you through the research-based and panelist-centric design process of Norstad's new panel pages. I will start with a brief history of online panels, then I'll show you how the new pages look like, and then my colleague Connie will take over with how can you gamify an online panel and what are the benefits for you as a researcher. So let's start with the history of online panels to give you a better understanding for which future we were preparing. Probably most of you remember that time when computers looked like this. That's the 90s. And they were characterized by very low internet penetration and a high barrier to access the internet. Only a small minority of the general population was actually using the internet, and those who did had the problem of low bandwidth and high prices. Remember when we used to pay for every single minute we went online. The main challenge was to cover all groups from the general population in a representative way and not just the young, tech-savvy early adopters. That changed with the 2000s. The internet went mainstream. As more and more people started to use the internet, it became much easier for online panels to identify online users and recruit them to the panel. However, it all came with a price. Online panels were suddenly competing with other websites, especially with social media platforms like Facebook. The challenge had become a different one. How can we motivate all online users to remain an active member in our panel without getting distracted by other websites? During the 2010s, we've seen a new development. Mobile devices hit the market, and all these devices brought new usage patterns with them. Suddenly there was no dedicated time or place for going online. We could receive or upload information wherever and whenever we wanted. As a consequence, online research had to become device and context agnostic to remain relevant. And the main challenge was, how can we make sure that everyone in the sample is able to participate in a study or even join a panel regardless of which device they are using. And that brings us to the present, the so-called post-digital era, where we see the next big development. The internet is more and more developing to something that is deeply embedded into our daily lives. People increasingly prefer using smart, user-centric products which are just convenient to use. At the same time, the boundaries between the digital and real world disappear. We are less likely to get impressed by new gadgets and start to focus more on things that really matter in our lives. And most panels are probably still not smart and user-centric enough to remain relevant in this era. In the panel business, it is getting harder to keep up a decent response rate, and we also realize those alarming signs in our own panels. Declining response rates, rising panel churn, declining membership duration, and declining net reach. So we knew we had to do something. And we had two ways we could go. We could either boost the volume of new registrations, but this would come along with lowering the quality standards of recruitment, and it would probably just be a short-term solution. The other way was to increase the longevity of our member space. That means we do everything we can to keep the panelists motivated and satisfied with a panel membership experience. And in order to do so, we have to get to know the panelists and understand their needs, which is of course expensive but probably necessary to keep up a long-term relationship. It all started in autumn 2017 we have collected a huge pile of information about panel performance, key challenges, best practices, etc. And then we contracted an external user experience agency. The first thing they did was carrying out focus groups with our panel members to verify or overthrow the assumptions we made based on our data. It then took about half a year to conceptualize new features, verify them in user tests, and integrate everything into a solid concept that we could actually put into code and produce. We then tested the research quality. We recruited members to this new platform and benchmarked their performance, data quality, etc. against our existing panel. In January 2019, we successfully started to relaunch our old panel pages. This was accompanied by a communication campaign to inform our panel members that there is a facelift and to make sure no one gets lost during the transition. Simultaneously, we closely monitored our panel performance to make sure everything was developing for the better. In the future, we have kept the whole platform flexible enough to continuously make changes, add features, introduce new functions, and further develop the website. The idea is to continuously improve the panel with the help of our panelists' feedback. We created a new brand appearance, a new name, a new design, with a modern design that makes the panel experience consistent on all touch points. And also a new user experience concept to improve usability and personalize the membership experience. We also added a new reward shop for redeeming incentives. We can target these options to redeem incentives to any tailor-made segment of our panel. For example, using the mobile app, our panelists can have an instant gratification. If you take part in a survey in the subway on your way to work, you get out of the subway and you already have a digital voucher to buy your coffee. One other new option is our Plant a Tree campaign. You can donate your bonus points, and we are glad to learn that donating is getting more and more popular. We are proud to say that around 1,000 trees are planted every month. You have the possibility to create your own avatar to give your account a personal touch. Besides of that is the personalized incentive scheme as mentioned before. We experienced, for example, that young people in urban areas appreciate cinema vouchers. And to summarize all changes, we created a little video we want to show you.
Why gamification? Our panelists told us that being a panel member can be a frustrating experience. You only get invited every now and then you might not belong to the target group, it might not be mobile friendly, Some topics are boring or lack relevance. It can also be hard to reach the threshold to redeem your bonus points, which is then obviously if it takes 1 or 2 years to get your redemption, it's a little bit frustrating. This is of course slightly opposed to our perspective as research professionals that incentives should not be the center of panel management. They are not only expensive but also pose a wrong motivation. Of course, we don't want, and I'm sure you agree with that, we don't want them to take the survey only to redeem the incentive, but basically we want to reward them for being honest, reliable, loyal, and to pay attention to what they answer. That is why we choose gamification. Games are intrinsically motivating, and that's exactly the mechanism we were looking for to create a better membership experience. With the help of game elements, we wanted to turn the panel membership into an experience that is enjoyable by itself. Or putting it more bluntly, the goal of the game is showing a behavior that is beneficial for researchers, plus you get extra benefits from being good at playing this game as well. So let's have a look at the game mechanics we applied. The first principle is to define desired behavior that makes you advance in the game. So we have defined several metrics and actions that are relevant for advancing. For example, downloading the app, participating in more than 75% of all surveys each month, responding to the survey link within 6 hours after being invited, and so on. The second principle is us giving feedback on the respondents' progress and how well they perform. There are a couple of ways to do it. We can communicate the expectation on performance and give feedback to what degree they currently meet the expectation. For example, we have the gauge that shows them how high their activity level for this month is. But we can also communicate and reward a one-time achievement. For example, badges for downloading the app, badges for inviting a friend, and so on. The third principle is rewarding desired behavior as often as possible. This doesn't mean you have to give panelists a physical benefit or incentive each time. It can be as simple as a score going up. But the important thing is that you do it very often, especially as you cannot rely on the experience of survey taking. So they don't always get an incentive, but for example, we have a second currency that is called Northstar Stars, which they get each time they reply to a survey, even if they get screened out or get quota full. The fourth principle is to create progression. Most of us not only see how well we perform, but also that we have become better over time. This is why we have created status upgrades, which can be seen as levels on a panel membership. It goes from standard to silver, gold, diamond, platinum, and VIP. In each of these levels, you can see how close you are to level up to the next status. So you see how many stars you need to get to the next status. The next status also gives you new tasks you can perform to get moving in your status. Another principle is gradually adding a complexity to the challenge. Human beings are good at adapting to certain tasks. So in order to keep it interesting and challenging, you have to make it gradually more complex or make it more demanding. This means after every challenge mastered, you must offer another interesting challenge to the panelists. For example, participate in 5 surveys in a row without missing out on a single invitation. We have created specific challenges for each of the levels that allow our panelists to collect stars and level up faster. When you level up, you also have more available avatars, for example. Finally, the last principle is granting benefits for having achieved a certain level, especially tickets to our lottery and also additional challenges to make a faster progression. To summarize, here you see all principles again in our new panel page at a glance. So the 6 principles is define a desired action or behavior, give feedback, reward desired behavior, create progression, gradually act complexity, and grant benefits for achieving a level. So let's have a final look at the effects of our panel relaunch. We see that our panel members stay in the panel longer. In addition, we also see that the activity level has gone up, especially the response rate. That was exactly what we hoped for. As a consequence, the panel size can be sustained or grown even more easily. Our recruitment doesn't have to only compensate the members who have unsubscribed or become inactive, but we can actually grow the panel. Hence, the new panel will help us to have a better panel composition overall. Last but not least, the panel performs in a more reliable and predictable way. If we invite a certain target group, we can be confident that the members will respond and complete the survey. This is of course a huge benefit for projects with difficult or niche target audience or short field periods. Thanks a lot for your attention. If you're watching live, we are more than happy to answer your questions now. Otherwise, please feel free to contact us via phone or email.